Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with us this morning. We have a lot to cover this morning, a lot of topics to give updates on. But the first one is the Birmingham City budget. And with that, I want to thank the Birmingham City Council for working with me to create a budget to support our shared priorities of neighborhood revitalization, our employees, as well as supporting our community and partners that provide services to the citizens and people of Birmingham. And so in this budget maintains a $10 million investment in street paving. We believe more than 200 streets have been identified for repaving in the new fiscal year. So without a doubt, this will help you avoid stop you from avoiding more potholes. In addition to that, you can view the full list of streets that will be repaved at birminghamal.gov/neighborhoods. In addition to that, we have committed $1 million to sidewalk repair. Now, some additional efforts that we're partnering with our neighborhoods on is we have established a grant program with $50,000 to support traffic calming, such as speed bumps, to promote safer streets. Now, throughout this grant program, neighborhood associations can use their funds to work in partnership with the city in identifying and placing traffic calming devices in their neighborhoods. In this budget, we are also supporting our employees. And what does that look like? Well, the first thing is our employees will receive a 1.5% pay raise. In addition to that, this budget includes merit raises for our employees, longevity pay for our employees, as well as all holidays paid for our employees. This budget also fully funds our city's pension with a city contribution of more than $32 million. Again, that is more than $32 million to make sure our pension is fully funded. The last note on our budget is that our boards and agencies have received full funding based on our contractual relationships. So, the next topic I want to talk about is the American Rescue Plan funding and what we are calling locally the Magic City Recovery Plan. Now that the work is complete on our city's budget, I look forward to working closely with the council as we shift our focus to the Magic City Recovery Plan supported through funds from the American Rescue Plan. Now, today, we start with the notion that we wanted to support our employees first. So the first spending is complete with the premium pay for our employees going out last Friday. As you know, and as we shared last week, for our employees, our full-time employees, that was a $5,000 premium pay. And for our part-time employees, that was a $2,500 premium pay for their continued service through the pandemic. The deadline for the public as well as city departments to submit any projects or ideas they have for a American Rescue Plan funding is today at 5 p.m. Again, that deadline is today for anyone in the public community or departments that have funding requests to share in the American Rescue Plan allocation. Now, our priorities are very clear for these funds. The first is seeing us through the COVID-19 health crisis, which is the root intent of what this funding is for. But in addition to that, it is getting our workers and our students back on their feet. In addition to that, it is doubling down on our commitment to neighborhood revitalization and supporting our small and Black-owned businesses. Some other things include partnering with the community on creative solutions to address challenges. We all know the biggest challenge is public safety. The city has received a total of to date before 5 p.m. 47 project idea submissions so far. And of those 47 project ideas, 65% focus on supporting the public health response, 34% focus on and center on neighborhood revitalization, and 23% of those 47 ideas already submitted address public safety. These projects will be reviewed by a committee of city staff, and we will also provide updates for the timeline for review in the coming weeks. And so those are our first two topics on our budget, as well as the American Rescue Plan funding. What I now want to speak to you about is some economic development efforts we have underway. The biggest one is the company organization called Landing. Again, a thank you. I want to thank the City Council for passage of an incentive plan with Landing to bring new jobs to our city. This is a partnership with the state and county to bring Landing's headquarters to Birmingham from San Francisco, with the creation of more than 800 new full-time jobs and a total payroll of $1.3 billion. Now, I think it's important to explain the city's role in the effort to bring Landing here. First thing we did was utilize our Tip Tap Top program, a model created a few years ago, which includes the whole notion of acquiring and training and retaining talent in our city. The city's incentive plan equates to $2,000 per employee in the city with a cap of right at $1.6 million. And the average salary is about $65,000 per year. The last note on this is that the overall incentive package provides a return on investment to this city of right at 356%. So that is a very large return on our investment. The next topic I want to provide an update on is public transportation. Many of you all know we delved into VIA, which is a micro transit organization, pre-pandemic. Again, the council, in support, and another thank you to them, approved funding yesterday to extend the city's current micro transit program for our community. You may know it as Birmingham On Demand, but it is powered by VIA. The additional funds will allow us to extend the program another 6 months in the new fiscal year as we determine next steps for this popular program that allows us to get our citizens from point A to B in our community. And VIA is also scaling up that to meet demand post this pandemic. VIA is now allowing a capacity of 4 riders at a time after reducing that number during the height of the pandemic. Just a few more notes, everybody. The next one is around public safety. The Birmingham police continue to work to remove firearms from our streets. Now, just in the last 2 weeks, just in the last 14 days, through enforcement efforts, our police have removed 126 firearms that were illegally possessed throughout our community. As of today, June 30th, which ends right at completing half the year, 6 months, we have taken 1,405. Everybody, that's 1,400 plus firearms have been recovered and removed off of our streets in our efforts to continue to fight and address gun violence in our community. Now, Birmingham police have launched the Don't Shoot campaign ahead of the 4th of July weekend, and let me tell you what that means. It means don't be stupid. Celebratory gunfire is illegal. Celebratory gunfire is dangerous. What goes up must come down. The last thing we need is a bullet coming down into someone's home. The last thing we need is a bullet coming down, entering someone's window. The last thing we need in our community, which is totally unacceptable, is a bullet, a stray bullet, a celebratory gunfire bullet, entering a home and shooting a child, a grandparent, or an adult. So again, it's illegal and it's wrong. Don't be stupid. Don't harm yourself or hurt anyone. Do not engage in celebratory gunfire. You should know that police will pursue all cases over the holiday weekend with help from ShotSpotter and cameras. We'll also have additional officers out in the street patrolling to watch for this behavior. Now, another note is surrounding our employees. Earlier, I told you about our employees are made whole with COLA, with the longevity, with holiday pay, as well as their pension being fully funded and premium pay. But I think it's also important that we do everything we can to take care of the health of our employees. And so today I am happy to announce that the Brownstone Healthcare Be Well Birmingham Employee Clinic has now launched. It will initially serve healthcare needs for city employees and their dependents, insured by the city at Brownstone Healthcare's existing clinic, while work is completed on an employee clinic located downtown in proximity where a large percentage of our employees work. The current clinic location is 4643 Camp Coleman Road. Again, that current location is 4643 Camp Coleman Road. The Birmingham Clinic for employees and their dependents will open at 1700 5th Avenue North by early August. Now, the launch of this employee health care clinic is expected to provide cost savings for our employees, which I've been here long enough to know this is always a concern for our employees, so we're happy to provide this, hoping to not only provide more health options for our employees, but more change in their pockets. In addition, providing this model of health care for our employees and their dependents will reduce overhead costs in the budget, which will provide cost savings for the taxpayers. Many of you all know that as we celebrate the 4th of July this weekend, the city of Birmingham is also commemorating being in existence 150 years. I want to urge everyone to be safe while you're enjoying yourselves this weekend. Remember, this year's Thunder on the Mountain will also salute the city of Birmingham's 150th birthdays. It will be Sunday night at 9 p.m. And Friday, July 16th, the city will throw a 150th summer celebration at Legion Field from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We welcome all of our families to come out, participate, citizens of Birmingham, and enjoy yourself. Logan, which is one of our local entertainers that always puts on a grand performance, will be in attendance, as well as food trucks and other fun activities. And finally, looking forward to Freedom Fest. Freedom Fest will be this year, July 24th. And you can get additional information at freedomfestbhm.com. Again, that is freedomfestbhm.com. Everybody, that was a lot of information, but a lot's been going on as we close out the first half of this year and begin the second half of this year tomorrow, starting July 1. So with that, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Rick Journey for anybody with questions.
I know we've got a number of people in City Hall today it's good to have all of you back in. I think it's a full group. We do have one person on call. We'll go and get them started. That way we don't miss them. Greg Garrison with AL.com is on the line. Greg, do you have a question?
Yeah, could the mayor address whether the budget is intact as he proposed it on May 18th, or did you have to make any kind of amendments or changes in the past month to what was passed last night?
So there are no amendments to the budget. What we've submitted back in May to the council, over the 6 weeks of working with the council, over the 6 weeks of the council having time to spend with our chief financial officer, as well as our chief of operations and our deputy chief of operations. We've gone through this budget line item, extreme detail. And so this budget is intact because everyone's made whole. And I know there was conversation yesterday in public. I've read a couple of publications today that some information out there is not correct. So let me, for the record, state factual information. The Birmingham Zoo was not defunded. The Birmingham Zoo did not receive a decrease in funding. What the Birmingham Zoo received was contractually agreed upon and contractually obligated. When this contract first started with the Birmingham Zoo, it was right at $1.5 million. And over years, it went from 1.5 to 1 million, and then it went from 1 million to 500,000. So the zoo is not receiving anything less. It is receiving what was contractually agreed upon and what was contractually obligated and what was contractually approved by the city council prior to and years ago. And so I think that's important to get that factual information out there, because we were very adamant when we said publicly that our organizations are made whole. That also includes the zoo.
Greg, do you have any follow-up?
No, that's it.
All right, Greg, thanks a lot. We'll open it up to the folks here.
Mayor, crime, the police department, $100 million. What is Chief Smith's, what are your top priorities you want them to focus on for the coming year with that budget?
Yes, so it's quite simple. I think you all know we have some prevention and reentry measures we're always focused on. But related to the police budget, it's centered right in the middle around enforcement. The biggest thing our citizens want is more police presence. And I like to remind this community, we have 815 sworn officers that are part of BPD. BPD is experiencing the same thing nationally that a lot of police departments are, which are a large amount of police officers are eligible for retirement, and that is mixed with this national conversation based on police reform efforts and just where the national tenor is, that there are less people actually applying to become officers. Therefore, with our existing 815 officers, it's going to be important how we strategically deploy them throughout the community to suppress crime, to be present, to build relationships in the community, and also be in a position to over-communicate with our citizens. How can we be of service and help protect and serve?
Do you want, I understand the Department one side, they want to get up to 905. Do you want a 905 for the World Games, or do you want to even be over 1,000 for the World Games next year?
I think it's a combination. I think it's very important. I just literally was with 10 mayors of the state of Alabama, largest cities. We were down in Mobile for a conference. We get together once a quarter. Part of our conversation was the World Games. CEO Nick Sellers communicated to the 10 mayors that this is a joint project and it crosses jurisdictional lines and related to public safety and policing and keeping our citizens as well as our visitors, spectators, and athletes safe. We'll need the support of surrounding jurisdictions, police officers, as well as emergency management, as well as fire departments. And so that's not just in Jefferson County, but throughout the state. I think all of our numbers combined gets us to a healthy number to keep everyone safe during the World Games.
Can I follow up on the public safety
Yes.
angle?
Yes, ma'am.
What are your plans with the police chief on possibly helping to keep officers in the force since there's so much of that issue? Are you all talking about possibly using incentives within that budget? What's the conversation?
Yeah, so
like?
there is definitely some preliminary conversation around incentives. It's not isolated to police. You should know the same issue exists in the fire department, not just for Birmingham, but across the nation. That there was just a national story the other day, just the number of public safety employees, right, which includes officers and firefighters that are eligible for retirement, and just how recruiting has changed, how the economy has changed, and what incentives can you offer in your recruiting for your recruiting classes, and for new officers and new firefighters. And so I was just on the call with our fire chief this morning. I was just meeting with our police chief yesterday. I think a combination of things we can do to incentivize people to not only want to become Birmingham police officers and Birmingham firefighters, but those who are eligible for retirement. The service they've been provided, we're very grateful for them and want them to stay a little longer.
It may be too early to tell, but do you think it's going to work?
Yes, I do. I think we have to be intentional about what we're looking for people to be on the front lines in our community. We just talked about Tip Tap Top, an economic development incentive plan we have in recruiting, and we talked about landing, where we should be doing the same thing for public safety employees or future public safety employees. We run on our front line protecting and serving this community for our citizens. So yes, I do think it will work.
Going over to education, getting $1 million to Birmingham schools, $2 million to Birmingham Promise. For those who might say, why not give even more money to Birmingham schools, or $2 million to schools because of needs? What would you tell us?
Yeah, well, it's a balance here. Let me be very clear and state that I support Dr. Mark Sullivan, who is our superintendent of Birmingham City Schools. I think he's doing a fine job with the hand he was dealt, which was becoming a superintendent in the middle of a global health pandemic. And the balance here is simple. They have their own separate budget, upwards of $300 million. We have a $450 million. And so what we give them is extra based on what they already have. In addition to that, superintendent will tell you if he was standing here, separate from our ARP funding, they receive $120 million of American Rescue Plan funding. And so they have their various pots of money. What our $3 million does total is only enhance what they already have towards that $300+ million, almost $300 million budget, and that $120+ million of American Rescue Plan funding. That $3 million is very targeted. The $1 million is targeted at providing mental health services for our students, which we believe is extremely important pre-pandemic, but definitely post-pandemic. In addition to that, that $2 million provides us an opportunity for the following. Alan, there's a national conversation right now, twofold. One around eliminating student debt. The other is around livable wages. That $2 million literally goes at both of those things, with apprenticeships where our young people make $15 an hour, and through public-private partnership, tuition free for those same high school students that graduate. So this $3 million is support of what they're already doing with the considerable high budget that they already have.
For the ARP money, a lot of can-go crime fighting. You said today's the deadline for departments, boards, with the proposals.
Right.
Do you have an idea what the police department may would like to do with some requests for some of their funding, what that they would like to use some of that money for?
I think it's simple. First of all, they have not submitted anything as a department. What I will say is this: as mayor, I think my brain is very clear what I'm about to say. In our ability to fight crime, I think it's really important that we focus on solving crime. When I first became mayor, I remember sitting down with our homicide and felony assault detectives, and they talked about the resources and gaps they didn't have. So we moved to close that gap and provide those resources to give them the extra tools, devices, resources, funding, etc. they needed to put them in the best position to investigate their crimes in order to solve those crimes. And then we fast forward. I think I've stood before this media many, many times over the last 3+ years to talk about needing help from the public in order to provide information to solve crime. Our ability to solve crime in my left hand is through cameras and devices and electronics, etc., to capture if you don't have a witness. But a lot of crime is committed not while that exists. And so in my right hand, we need witnesses to come forward. Well, if there's a gap in there, my mind immediately goes to we need additional, equipment in our city in the form of cameras, strategically placed to help our ability to solve crime, because it's simple. We solve more crimes, I believe we can get more people off the street that are committing these crimes. Getting more people off the street that are committing these crimes allows us to decrease crime. And so we have to invest more in technology.
One more question, if anybody has it. Watching the time, got to get my boss out. Okay.
He said he has to get me out.
So cameras, that would be one of the things you would definitely like to see that money going toward.
Absolutely.
Sir, did you attend a meeting in which the American Rescue Act and the use of those funds was discussed? And if so, do you have any plans for those funds for like hiring additional officers or any other methods to combat violence? Yeah,
I think you are referring to the Big Ten Mayors Conference. Again, we meet quarterly. And when we meet, Mayor Sandy Stimson, it was his turn to host in Mobile. It's usually a 2-day conference every quarter. And we usually have a topic we speak to. And so our topic this time was square in the middle of public safety, particularly around gun violence. And what I found is it's not a Birmingham issue in isolation. It's an American issue, but even within the state of Alabama, you have the same issues in Huntsville and Montgomery and Tuscaloosa and Mobile and some of the other cities that were present. So all of our chiefs were present as well. And it was interesting to listen to the chiefs of these various cities speak to the same issue, and then the mayor speak. And we had a great host in Mayor Stimson around some of the things they're doing, best practices, and everybody just started sharing information. And so where all of those things met the American Rescue Plan funding, how can we augment some of the things we're doing, enhance those things to provide more public safety tools in the toolbox to address crime around gun violence.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's good to see everybody back.
Thank y'all.
Would you invite President